Unfortunately, the housekeeper took me around a lot, but I didn't see that this yard was suspected of being haunted. Isn't it possible that Dean Su has made himself stupid by thinking about philosophy? Su Linzhou stood in the antique nave. He was wearing a simple black sportswear. He looked slender and tall, and his angular face made him fairer. When he saw me coming, his lifeless eyes suddenly lit up, and he hurriedly ran to me. "Professor Jiang, you're here. It's all my fault. I said you study historical relics every day, and you must know some incredible things. My house is haunted. My house is really haunted." I sneered in my heart, only now do I know? Late. But Dean Su's family really doesn't have any evil spirit at all. Where did he come from? Is he crazy? I coughed and pretended to comfort, then tell me how you saw the ghost. What did the ghost look like? Dean Su's face turned even paler. Even if someone walks at night, the cabinet will move on its own. I asked him to take me to see. Dean Su was also stunned. Aren't you scared? As soon as he said this, I remembered that I am an ordinary history teacher now. Thinking of this, I glared at him unnaturally. Why would I come here if I was afraid? Dean Su thought for a moment and felt that he was a bit silly for asking, so he led me into the haunted house. Go. I have only seen Dean Su who is so impressive in lectures, but this was the first time I saw him shrinking. It's more like a panicked human child, waiting for the protection and comfort of adults. I quickly threw away this thought. Who should I protect? This human being who does not believe in evil? Dean Su's voice trembled. That's it, right here. I looked where he pointed. The house was indeed antique, but it was really clean inside, without even a trace of ghosts. Since there are no real ghosts, it is the human mind that is at work. After thinking about it, I still said, Dean Su, not to mention that there are no ghosts here. Even if there are ghosts, you shouldn't look for me. You can find a Taoist priest more useful than me. There are Taoist priests on the market who are good at guiding people. If they can trick Dean Su and Xiaowan, their suspicious illness will be cured. Dean Su's fingers were cold, and he pulled me through his coat. He looked at me pitifully. Then, if there were no ghosts, why would the closet be moving around? I rolled my eyes, turned around, and walked out. Your closet, they are all antiques from the Guangxu period. It's good that the wind hasn't blown them away over the past few hundred years. He obviously didn't believe in evil. He changed his calmness when he was not talking about ghosts and gods in popular science in the past, and followed me step by step. Yes, but the footsteps in the corridor - hallucinations. Then - I yelled impatiently. Has your brain been caught in the door? Don't you believe in ghosts? At this moment you should look through philosophy books to find the answer yourself? Why are you nagging me? I don't dare to hit you because you are rich and handsome, right? Everyone knows Jiang from the history department. The professor has a bad temper and is not easy to mess with. I am used to yelling. Unfortunately, Dean Su is new here and I am determined to pretend to be a lady in front of him. Naturally, he is not used to it. I turned my head to look at him and saw him standing behind me like an angry little wife, wanting to say something, but afraid that I would actually do it. Yes, I really can't bear to hit him. I calmed down and acted as if nothing had happened. I'm sorry, I'm on my menstrual period and I'm not in a good temper. Why don't you move out? It doesn't look like it's habitable. Dean Su scratched his head. But my dad asked me to live here for 2 months to make the old house more popular. Oh, there's nothing we can do about it. He looked at me eagerly and almost knelt down to beg me. Professor Jiang, why don't you live here? Anyway, this old house is very big and has a long history, so you can just treat it as a vacation here. After all, it was a fight between colleagues. Okay, I admit that I was jealous. I just want to make friends with a handsome guy. I thought to myself, it's not impossible to stay here. His eyes lit up and his face turned rosy in an instant. Then live here. I asked cautiously, Dean Su doesn't have a girlfriend, right? If he does, I won't bother you. Dean Su's mood was obviously unpredictable. Just now he was beaming with joy, but now he is filled with gloom and gloom. He said quietly, when I was in the teaching assistant room, I told you that I don't have a girlfriend. I said deliberately, oh, you didn't tell me. How would I know? He muttered in a low voice, I'm just telling you. What? I didn't hear clearly. Nothing. I'll go back with you to pack your clothes. Under Su Linzhou's kind invitation, I naturally settled in this old house. I thought Su Linzhou said he was afraid of ghosts, but he was simply unable to sleep and causing mischief. After all, he didn't believe in evil, so even if he was afraid, he wouldn't necessarily be afraid of anything. But I underestimated him. At 3:30 in the morning, I just stopped watching TV dramas and was about to get up, go to the bathroom, and then start cultivating immortality. Suddenly there was a hurried knock on the door. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Su Linzhou in his nightgown. To be more precise, it was the panicked Su Linzhou. When he saw me with an excited expression, he was stunned for a moment. "You haven't slept yet?" Then he realized what he was here for. Before I could say anything, he squeezed in first. "Ghost. Professor Jiang. There is a ghost in the room." I felt my facial features wrinkled together, with a look of disbelief on my face, but I tried my best to suppress my irritation and said patiently, "Dean Su, you came to my room at 3 o'clock in the morning and said there was a ghost." "Ghost? I think you are the one with evil intentions, right?" Needless to say, Dean Su really has some demonic aura about him. I frowned. "You lead the way, I want to see who the monster is." He and I walked around the dilapidated corridor of the old house and came to the bedroom where Su Linzhou lived. As soon as I entered the door, before I had time to see clearly, Su Linzhou hurriedly hid behind me, just that cabinet. I just saw it move with my own eyes. I couldn't help but twitch the corner of my mouth, but I still said something fair. Then I said, "Dean Su, I'm just here to give you courage. Don't think that I can really get rid of ghosts." I walked to the cabinet thoughtfully, but I couldn't smell any fluctuations in supernatural power. Weird, there really are no ghosts. But what about that evil spirit? I comforted him. "It's not a big deal. Maybe you are just blinded." Su Linzhou was not so scared now. He could only nod, but his eyes were glued to me, obviously not wanting me to leave him alone. Here. At this moment, I felt that he was possessed by a ghost. Otherwise, why would there be such a big gap between the people in front of him and the people behind him? "Don't worry, even if there is a ghost, she won't kill you. After all, you're so handsome." Su Linzhou's expression was as expected, and the little bits of fear were choked by the last sentence. After a long while, he could only say coolly, "Professor Jiang, you're so funny. You didn't just find out today, did you?" I raised my eyebrows at him. His black hair was blown by the cool summer night wind, and there were some emotions that I couldn't understand in his calm eyes. After a long time, he raised his lips and smiled. When he smiled, he revealed two sweet pear dimples, which were actually somewhat gentle. That's not true. I knew it the first day I met Professor Jiang. "Why are you looking at me so affectionately?" Now it was my turn to choke, so I could only turn around and pretend to be calm. "Then you are pretty good." "Huh? Well, thank you for the compliment." "You're welcome." Of course, no matter how beautiful Dean Su smiled, he still slept alone in a haunted house last night. Dean Su was probably not so promising that he could scare me to death, so I moved to the opposite side of his house at noon the next day. If he had known that he had invited an old monster back to his house, he would not be able to smile like a flower. Complaints are all complaints, but he and I are colleagues after all, so we can't live in vain when we come here. I did feel a bit of evil spirit last night. After lunch, I asked Su Linzhou to take me around the old house. Su Linzhou took me around the courtyard for a long time. When he saw that I was silent, he tentatively said, "Professor Jiang, do you feel that we have a good understanding?" I didn't understand what he meant. He smiled and said, "You don't say anything and I don't say anything. We walked like this for half an hour. Isn't that a tacit understanding? Your joke is colder than the 18-degree air conditioner I turned on." Although Dean Su has the ability to tell cold jokes, seeing how hard he works to find a topic, I can't help but know what's good and what's good. This willow tree is quite beautiful. I focus my gaze on an old willow tree directly in front of me. This willow tree is the eye of the townhouse. After hundreds of years of nourishment, as soon as I got closer, I felt the vast spiritual energy rushing towards me. "Come." Many spirits give birth to demons, and it is estimated that this old willow tree will become a spirit soon, but this has nothing to do with being haunted, right? But Linzhou's pitiful appearance didn't look like he was lying to me. Why did he lie to me? There's no way he could trick me into coming to his house for dinner, right? Looking at it this way, the evil spirit can only be removed unless the willow tree is removed. But in that case, the house will not be able to withstand the wind and rain, and it will collapse sooner or later. Dean Su gave me food, but I couldn't go to his Dragon King temple, so I really couldn't help him. And the old willow tree has done nothing bad, so I can't pull up the weeping willow tree. Just when I thought I could eat and drink here for free until school starts and go to work, Su Linzhou seemed to have something wrong. He stayed up in the middle of the night and kept coming and knocking on my door. He didn't say anything when he opened the door. Instead, he stood in front of me in a coquettish manner. I only saw that his nightgown was slightly open, vaguely revealing his clear and graceful muscle lines. His skin is white, and when the moonlight shines on a summer night, it looks crystal clear, TSK. Why do I feel like the angle of his nightgown is so open? I couldn't help but swallow, turned my head, and looked at the clock behind me. It was very early today. It was only 10:30. Su Linzhou's tone was trembling. Professor Jiang, I heard someone walking in the corridor. Then there's nothing I can do. I can't get rid of ghosts. I really can't figure out how he would come to me when he saw a ghost. At this moment, it would be more useful for him to go to the yard and do a set of radio gymnastics than to come to me. I'm so scared that I can't sleep. Can you come with me for a walk? He lowered his head and looked at me carefully. He doesn't dare to sleep at night. How dare he take a walk? Is there something wrong with his brain, or am I abnormal? I stared at him for a long time and couldn't help but ask, Dean Su, are you scared out of your mind? No. How about you go to a movie with me? It seems that walking is a bit unrealistic, so he added, my home theater is quite big, and there are a lot of snacks. This sounds pretty good. Well, since you're so scared, I'll just stay with you for a while. Dean Su's home theater is indeed very large, even more advanced than a movie theater, and the chairs even have massage functions. He pushed a small cart for me, which was full of expensive snacks. I suddenly wanted to live here for a few more years. What do you want to see? Journey to the West. He paused and finally found Journey to the West among a bunch of literary and historical documentaries. I watched it with great interest and didn't care about Dean Su at all. I thought Dean Su was also watching Journey to the West with great interest, but after the episode ended, the large LCD screen suddenly went black, and my night vision ability was excellent, so I saw that Dean Su had been watching me. My hand froze when I was eating potato chips. Could it be that he saw that I was a monster, so he took me to see Journey to the West and asked me to put down the butcher knife and become a Buddha immediately? I suddenly sat on pins and needles and glanced at him unnaturally. Dean Su, what are you looking at me doing? Su Linzhou didn't seem to expect that I could turn my head suddenly. His expression was even more unnatural, and he even touched his nose. Your earrings are very pretty. He didn't watch the next episode of Journey to the West and kept his eyes on me. What's happening here? I couldn't stand it any longer, so I decided to go back and ask my human colleagues if Dean Su was seriously ill. Thinking of this, I could only turn my head and say to him, it's too late, Dean Su, I want to go back to bed. Oh, okay, it's indeed a bit late. He took me back to the corridor again, his expression really uncomfortable. He was as scared as before, but he was still calm and at least the nightgown was neatly tied around her body. It's really strange. Wasn't he still scared just now? After sending me back to the bedroom, he stayed at the door for a long time and seemed to have something to say to me. But I have to say that this black silk nightgown looks very evil, and evil when worn by the elegant Dean Su. For the sake of his good looks, I asked, do you have anything else to say? He pursed his lips slightly and looked at me shyly. Professor Jiang, I can call you by your name. Is that it? That's it? Shout, what's the big deal?